I'd always figured I knew my wife inside and out. A solid 10 years together, more conversations than I could count, shared hopes for the future, and all those small, comfortable moments that made life feel stable. Never once did I have any real doubts about her. Until that evening she came home from a week away on business. I can still picture myself standing there in the living room when I heard her car pull up outside. My heart did that little skip it always did whenever she came back. No matter how routine our days got, no matter how busy we were, I was still completely in love with her. The door swung open, and there she stood, beaming like she'd just returned from the best trip of her life. Miles, she miles-led, dropping her luggage and hurrying over to me. She hugged me tight, and it struck me that she smelled different. New perfume, maybe. It wasn't unpleasant, just unexpected. I shook off the thought. She launched into her usual homecoming routine, rattling off details about endless meetings, bad hotel Wi-Fi, and how drained she felt. But even as she spoke, something felt off. I've spent a decade reading her eyes, knowing when she's tired, when she's thrilled, and when she's hiding something. That night there was warmth, but underneath it there was something else. Was it nerves? Guilt? I couldn't pin it down. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she was just exhausted. Then I reached for her suitcase to bring it upstairs, and her sunny expression cracked for just an instant. Barely more than the blink of an eye. But I noticed. Unzipping the bag, I expected to find the usual messy assortment of clothes and travel stuff. Instead, I pulled out rumpled garments. Not at all like her typey Miles' neat packing. A random bottle of wine she hadn't mentioned, and a men's hoodie I'd never seen before, carefully tucked in a side pocket. Everything seemed to slow down. My hands brushed over the fabric, and the sharp scent of an unfamiliar cologne hit me. I felt her tense up beside me. "Oh, that's not mine," she blurted, snatching at the hoodie, a flash of panic crossing her features. "Must have been a mix-up at the airport," she insisted. "You know how they always screw up baggage." I stood there silent, just staring. That was the moment I realized she hadn't been on a simple business trip. She'd been somewhere else, and she was terrified I'd figured it out. My life, our life, suddenly felt like it was unraveling. I held the hoodie like some piece of incriminating evidence I never asked to find. Claire tried to grab it from me, but I pulled back, watching her face. She wasn't just anxious, she was panicked. I could see it in her shaking hands and the way she forced each breath. "Claire," I said carefully, my voice as mild as I could manage. "Whose hoodie is this?" She tried to laugh, but it came out pitched too high. "Oh, come on, Miles. Obviously, it's just a screw-up. I must have picked up the wrong suitcase at the airport. It's crazy there, you know that." I didn't argue or move. My quiet stare alone seemed to press down on her. She started talking too fast, grasping at one theory after another. Maybe it belonged to someone at the conference, or maybe the hotel had given it out, or maybe it was some random freebie. "I don't know, Miles," she said, her voice climbing a notch. "Why does it matter?" "It matters," I replied evenly, "because you're lying." Something flickered across her face at that word. She opened her mouth, then shut it, like she was trying to decide her next move. I dropped the hoodie on the couch and crossed my arms. "All right," I said, nodding at her luggage. "If it's a simple mix-up, then there's nothing to hide, right? Let's look through everything, together." Her eyes went wide. "Miles, that's just ridiculous." I took a small step toward her, not aggressively, but to show I wasn't buying any of it. "So let's check," I repeated. The unsteady hitch in her breathing gave me all the confirmation I needed. Ignoring her frantic protests, I unzipped the rest of the suitcase. At first, I found the type I Miles things. Clothes, toiletries, gum. Then I reached the bottom and felt my stomach twist at what I saw next. A black lace bra I'd never laid eyes on before. A receipt for a fancy hotel, one that definitely wasn't the place she'd said her company had reserved. A pricey bottle of men's cologne. Claire drew in a sharp breath behind me. Then came the silence, the kind so heavy it crushes every word before it can form. I turned to face her, watching as all color drained from her cheeks. "Miles," she whispered, but I just shook my head. I didn't want to hear whatever excuse she had ready. Not then. My eyes dropped to the hotel bill, the reservation under someone else's name. A man's name. And in that instant, all the loose ends snapped together. She hadn't been stuck in pointless meetings. She'd been with him. My insides clenched as anger, betrayal, and heartbreak washed over me in one brutal wave. I tried to steady myself, swallowing hard. Claire moved closer, her hands shaking. I can explain," she stammered. But I met her gaze and realized I barely recognized her. This woman was a stranger to me now, the same person I'd devoted a decade of my life to, the woman I'd trusted beyond all doubt. I stood there clutching that hotel receipt like it was my last grip on reality. Everything was spinning in my head, but deep down, I already knew what was real. Claire wasn't in back-to-back work sessions, and she wasn't losing her mind over bad Wi-Fi. She was with him, this unknown man whose name was on the bill. She saw that I had her cornered. Her fingers twitched, reaching for the receipt like she could somehow undo what I'd just discovered. I tightened my hold. "Don't," I said quietly, and her lips parted in sheer panic. "Miles, please," she said, her voice trembling. "I can explain." My tone stayed Milesum, but I could feel something inside me cracking wide open. "Explain how you ended up at the Halston Regent instead of the hotel your company supposedly booked?" I flicked the receipt onto the floor, watching it flutter between us. "Or explain how this cologne, besito," I held up the slim glass bottle, "managed to find its way into your suitcase?" She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. She had nothing. No story, no confusion to pretend. She'd been caught, and we both knew it. I could see her chest rising and falling quickly, desperate to grab any thread of hope to save her lie. But there was nothing left to save. I grabbed the back of a chair, my legs threatening to give out. I needed something, anything, to keep me from collapsing in front of her. She tried again, voice trembling. "Miles," as though I was the one who needed comforting. "It's not what you think," she insisted. I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Then tell me." She froze, and that hesitation told me all I needed to know. "You know what? Don't," I said, fingers tightening around the chair. "I'm done hearing excuses." Inside, everything churned, and when she reached toward me, I took a step back. I couldn't stand her touch. Her voice cracked. "Miles, please let me explain." "Explain this lace bra you took on your business trip? Or why I'm the bad guy for noticing?" She stood there, breathing fast, looking for a lifeline. A part of me, an embarrassing, desperate part, still wanted her to prove me wrong. But I knew she couldn't. Silence clung to the room. Finally, her voice dropped. "It's complicated." And that was it. No denial, no twisting of facts. I straightened, letting go of the chair. "Then make it simple," I said, my tone ice cold. "Who is he?" She froze like she'd been slapped. I stepped closer, every muscle tight. "The name on that hotel receipt, the cologne. Whoever you were with." Her gaze shifted to the floor, and when she finally spoke, it was barely a whisper. "Derek." The name hit me like a gut punch, because it made everything real. This wasn't a foolish mistake or a drunken slip. It was calculated, deliberate. I barely heard her frantic words after that. I just knew I had to get out. Before I realized it, I was at the door, her panicked voice trailing behind me. Something about it didn't mean anything, about it being a mistake. But all I could focus on was that name echoing in my head. The doorknob felt cold in my hand. "Miles, please," she begged, sounding terrified. "Can we talk?" I glanced back. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't recognize her. Just someone who thought words might erase a betrayal. I let out a hollow laugh. "Talk about what, Claire?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. I didn't mean for this to happen." I turned fully to face her. "You didn't mean to cheat?" It came out half disbelieving, half furious. She had no response, just tears. And for the first time, I just didn't care. She'd once been my entire world. I'd stood by her through every secret, fear, and doubt. Now none of it mattered. She tried to insist it wasn't what I thought, but I stepped in, cutting her off. "Claire, when you were with him in that hotel, did you ever think about me? When you packed that lingerie, made reservations, did you picture what it would do to us?" Her face fell. She looked like she wanted to disappear, which was exactly how I felt inside. "Miles," she whispered, tears in her eyes, but I was too worn out to be angry anymore. I just sighed, shaking my head. "You know what? I don't even want to hear it. I don't care anymore." I saw real fear flicker across her face. Fear of the fallout, not fear of losing me. She'd chosen her path, and now she had to live with it. I grabbed my keys and walked out without a backward glance. The night air hit me hard, but it couldn't clear my head. I sat in my car, fists clenched on the steering wheel, replaying how quickly my life had unraveled. I had nowhere to go, no one to Milesel, until I remembered Troy, an old friend from way back. After a few rings, he answered, half asleep. "Miles?" "Yeah," I managed, my voice unsteady. "I need a place to crash." "Come," he said, waking up fast. "Doors are open." I hung up and started the engine, leaving the house that suddenly felt like a stranger's. Streetlights blurred past as I drove, but my thoughts stayed in that living room, echoing with her pleas. The second I realized she feared consequences more than she feared hurting me, something in me snapped. This was no mistake. She had been lying for who knows how long. Now the truth was out, and there was no going back. Her illusion had finally crumbled, and I could feel the weight of it pressing against my ribs as I drove. I didn't even know how long she and Derek had been involved. Maybe it was just this trip, maybe months or even years. Either way, I'd been sleeping beside a stranger without a clue. Troy's place was only about 20 minutes away, but every red light felt like an eternity. My thoughts kept spinning with no clear plan. A divorce seemed inevitable, but that hardly felt like enough. Mid-drive, my phone lit up. Claire. Part of me wanted to ignore her, let her sit in the mess she'd made, but her text said, "I swear it's important." So I gave in and answered. The moment she spoke, I realized she wasn't just panicked or guilty. She was genuinely frightened. She said she'd felt like someone was watching her, maybe even inside our house. Then she dropped the bomb. There were photos on her phone, pictures of her sleeping that she definitely hadn't taken. A chill ran through me. I pulled into an empty lot, gripping the wheel. "Are you alone?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. The silence on the other end spoke volumes, followed by a single trembling "no." Then the line cut out. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to walk away. After what she did, how dare she ask for help? But I couldn't ignore the terror in her voice. I tried mousing back. Twice. Still nothing. I bit out a curse under my breath, tightening my grip on the steering wheel as I considered what was happening. If this was some twisted trick to lure me back, it was beyond cruel. But I couldn't shake the feeling something else was going on. Could Derek be with her, trying to push me into coming home out of guilt? The more I thought about it, the more I sensed something was really off. And despite every rational thought urging me to walk away, I knew I wouldn't. I'd lived with Claire for a decade, and I'd never heard that kind of fear in her voice. Throwing the car into gear, I sped toward the house that no longer felt like mine. In the driveway, only her car sat, the downstairs lights glowing, while upstairs stayed dark. I cut the engine and slipped out, gently testing the front door. It was unlocked. Stepping inside made my skin crawl. It felt like I'd entered a place I no longer recognized. The living room was empty, the same half-packed suitcase still lying open. Then I heard it, a faint creak from the second floor. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs. Another soft shuffle made my pulse spike. At the top, our bedroom door was slightly ajar, darkness swallowing the doorway. I pushed it open and found Claire crouched in the corner, knees drawn tight, her phone abandoned on the floor. She didn't speak, just stared up at me with terrified eyes, lifting a trembling finger to point behind me. That's when I noticed the figure lurking in the shadows near the closet. My blood ran cold. Instinctively, I flicked on the light. The stranger didn't charge us. Instead, he bolted for the window, shoved it open in one practiced motion, and vanished outside. I rushed over, but there was no trace of him. No footsteps, no sound, like he'd melted into the night. Behind me, Claire sobbed. My adrenaline surged as I turned around. "What the hell was that?" I demanded. She shook her head, voice trembling, insisting she had no idea. My mind flashed to the hoodie, the cologne, the hotel receipt, and those pictures on her phone. "Claire," I said, quietly, feeling a knot tighten in my chest. "How long have you been seeing Derek?" She swallowed hard and admitted in a small voice, "A few months," before trailing off. I cut her short. "Did he ever come here?" She hesitated, and that told me everything I needed to know. I dragged a hand over my face, a whirlwind of anger and dread colliding in my gut. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. Someone had been in our house, watching us, and I wasn't sure who it even was. I looked at her, my heart hammering. Everything had changed in an instant, and I had no idea where we were supposed to go from here. Her affair was already a bitter pill to swallow, but this new discovery felt even worse. Someone had actually been inside our home, creeping around where they didn't belong. My thoughts raced as I stood there, forcing myself to breathe steadily. "Claire Owen," I said in a low voice that brokered no argument. "Did Derek ever come here?" She hesitated, and that tiny pause told me everything I needed to know. My stomach twisted. "How many times?" I pushed, moving closer, my anger fueling each step. "How many times has he been in my house?" Tears filled her eyes. I'm not sure," she whispered. "A few." I inhaled sharply and let my hand slide down my face in disbelief. It was unimaginable. She'd brought him into the place I paid for, where I built our life, where I loved her without question. A sudden shift ran through me, like a final break in something already worn thin. I was done. Done with feeling helpless. Done letting her betrayal define me. Done being the fool who believed in her, no matter what. Right then, I realized Claire was no longer my responsibility. I straightened up, a sense of milesum spreading through me, and simply said, "All right." Confusion flickered across her face. "What?" she asked. I waved a hand around the room. "This mess you've made? It's all yours now." Her expression faltered. "I don't give a damn about Derek," I went on. "I don't care how long you two have been sneaking around or what reasons or apologies you're about to offer." I took a slow breath, letting the weight of my decision settle in, because I'm finished. Her tears spilled over, and she reached for me with a quavering, "Miles, please." I actually laughed, short and humorless. "No, Claire," I answered. "You don't get to use that word with me anymore." My heart felt strangely light as I turned to go. She sounded panicked, asking in a tight voice, "Where are you going?" I glanced back, just enough to see her desperate expression. "I'm walking out to live my life," I said softly. Her face crumpled, and she spoke my name like a plea. I didn't respond. I left her there, caught in the wreckage she had created. That night, I ended up at Troy's place. We wound up on his back porch, sharing a couple of beers under the same stars we'd admired back when we were kids. After a while, I said, "You know the best part?" and took a sip. Troy raised an eyebrow, half smiling. "That you're finally free?" I let out a genuine laugh. "Exactly," I said. And it was true. Over the following months, everything shifted around me. The divorce went through quickly because Claire's infidelity wasn't hard to prove. We sold the house, and I took my share of the money to find some place that felt like it was truly mine. As for Claire, well, she discovered that a man like Derek wasn't cut out for long-term commitment. He ghosted her the moment reality set in. She tried reaching out, apologizing, promising she could fix things. I never answered. I poured all my energy into rediscovering who I was without her. I hit the gym, reconnected with old friends, and did some traveling. Eventually, I crossed paths with someone new. It wasn't instantaneous fireworks or some storybook romance, but it was honest, and that was enough for me.